Hello everyone, it's Darren from Go English, and today I want to teach you a lesson in grammar. Now this grammar has a name. Uh, this grammar is called the second conditional. Now there are more than just one conditional. There's the zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and a mixed conditional. I will teach about the other conditionals in a different lesson, but today I want to only focus on the second conditional. So what is the second conditional? Well, the word conditional means that if something is true or if it's not true. So there's a condition, right? So with all the conditionals, we usually start the sentence or question with if or when. In the case of the second conditional, we can't use the word when. It's only the word if. So let's take a look and see how the second conditional works and what situations you can use it in and why you would want to use the second conditional. Okay, so let's go over here to my screen. The second conditional is used to talk about things that are impossible or something that you think won't happen. So maybe not completely impossible, but unlikely in your mind. So even if you want to communicate, you want somebody to think that you think something won't happen, you could use the second conditional to communicate what you think. So like I have here on the screen, you think that it cannot happen. And it's in the future or in the present. This is not used to talk about the past. That would be a different grammar. So the sentence form is if past tense verb, I would verb. Or you can switch it to say I would verb if past tense verb. So let's take a look at an example here. Here's a question that we can ask, and the question uses the second conditional, and the answer will also use the second conditional. So the question, if you could wake up tomorrow anywhere in the world, where would you be and why? So the and why is kind of an add-on question. So let's compare the question there to this structure. Let's take a look at it again. If you could wake up tomorrow anywhere in the world, where would you be? So if you could wake up anywhere in the world, where would you be? Okay, so you can see that this does fit, and you can use it to ask the question or to answer. And so how would we use the second conditional to answer this? Well, we just switch some things around and change you to I. So you could say, if I could wake up tomorrow anywhere in the world. So this would all be the same. And then here's where it would change. I would be where? This order. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would be at home in my bed, or I would be, like the picture, in the mountains. So I'll say the full answer. If I could wake up tomorrow anywhere in the world, I would be camping in the mountains. And why? Because I love nature. So yeah, take a look. Here's an answer. If I could wake up tomorrow anywhere I wanted, I'd wake up in a tent in the Rocky Mountains. So let's compare the answer to the sentence structure again. Review that sentence structure. If, past tense verb, would. If, past tense verb, would. Verb. Okay? So if I could wake up tomorrow anywhere I wanted, I'd wake up in a tent in the Rocky Mountains. This doesn't answer why. And also, I'd is I would. I'd wake up in a tent in the Rocky Mountains. So I have some more of these kinds of second conditional questions. I'm going to ask them to you. And the best way to do this is find another person to practice with. Find a partner to practice answering these questions with, and then you can have some conversation. You can use these to have a conversation about an impossible or unlikely situation, and use your imagination to answer these questions. It's a great way to have a conversation and get to know somebody. So this is great practice for the second conditional. So after each question, I want you to pause the video. Think about how you would answer this question, and then I will give you an example answer. Your answer may be different, probably will be different than my answer, but as long as the sentence structure, the grammar structure, is the same, it's a good answer. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, why? So that's the add-on question here. Because I love camping and nature, it's so beautiful. Okay. If you could be a famous singer or actor for one day, who would you be and why would you choose to be that person? Again, if you could be a famous singer or actor for one day, who would you be and why would you choose to be that person? Go ahead and stop the video. Think about how you would answer this question, have some conversation with your partner, and then continue. Okay, so I will give you an example answer to this question. Let me think about who I would choose though. I'll say, if I could be a famous singer or actor for one day, I would choose to be Will Smith, because I think Will Smith is a very cool guy. So this is an example answer, and if your answer sounded similar to that, very good. Okay, next question. If you owned a factory, what would you manufacture and why would you choose that product? Again, if you owned a factory, what would you choose? What would you manufacture and why would you choose that product? So the word manufacture, if you don't know this word, manufacture just means make. When a factory makes a product, we can use the word manufacture. So if you owned a factory, what would you manufacture and why would you choose that product? Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, so my example answer would be, if I owned a factory, I would manufacture cars because I love cars I love driving, and I think it would be great to own a car factory. Okay, next question. If you had to give away $1 million to a charity, what charity would you choose and why? So if you didn't notice, I took the red away from these, but still notice which words, if, owned, would, they're still here. If, had, would. So if you had to give away $1 million to a charity, what charity would you choose and why? Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, so my example answer would be, if I had to give away $1 million to a charity, I would choose the Red Cross because they help people when they are in a time of need, in an emergency. Next question is, if you were a character in a cartoon, what character would you be and why? I'll read it again. If you were a character in a cartoon, what character would you be and why? Okay, go ahead, pause the video to talk with your partner. Okay, so my example answer would be, if I were a character in a cartoon, I would be Winnie the Pooh because I love to eat honey. Okay, next question. Now this question is a little bit more than just one question. So you can have some fun talking about this with your partner. If you could invent a new animal, describe what it would look like, what it would eat, where it would live, and what it would sound like. There's a lot of parts to that. Let me read it again. If you could invent a new animal, describe what it would look like, what it would eat, where it would live, and what it would sound like. Okay, go ahead and pause the video. Okay, I'll just give you an example answer. If I could invent a new animal, I would invent a horse that could swim like a fish so that people could ride their horse across a river or a lake. It would eat grass, it would live near the water, and it would sound like a normal horse. Next question. If you could go back in time, what year would you choose and why? If you could go back in time, what year would you choose and why? Okay, go ahead and discuss this with your partner. All right, I'll give you my example answer. If I could go back in time, I would go back to 1986. Because this was a very fun time in my childhood, and I think it would be fun to relive my childhood years knowing what I know now. Okay, next question. Okay, if you could pick a new first and last name, which ones would you choose and why? If you could pick a new first and last name, which ones would you choose and why? Okay, go ahead and pause the video to discuss this question with your partner. Okay, so now let me give you an example answer. I'm just going to choose a really common name. If I could pick a new first and last name, I would choose Dan Jones to show that. Okay, next question. If you could have dinner with someone who has passed away, who would you choose? Okay, now if you don't know passed away means they have died. Okay, and this passed away is a much more polite and respectful way to say they've died. So listen to the question again. If you could have dinner with someone who has passed away, who would you choose? Okay, go ahead and pause the video to discuss the question with your partner. Okay, now I'll give the example answer. If I could have dinner with someone who has passed away, I would choose to have dinner with my grandfather because I miss my grandfather very much and it would be wonderful to see him again. Okay, next question. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why would you choose that food? Again, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why would you choose that food? Okay, pause the video and answer the question with your partner. Okay, now let me give you my example answer. If I could only eat one food for the rest of my life, it would be pizza. Because pizza can have meat and it can have cheese, which is dairy. It can have bread, so that's a grain. It can have vegetables. So pizza covers many of the food groups. And plus, I love pizza. What I want you to do now is I want you to try to use the second conditional to make some of your own second conditional questions to ask your partner. Now remember, the grammatical structure of these, you can look at the ones in the lesson, or right here, you can see this structure. So if you, past tense verb, would you, verb. Okay? That's how to ask the question. Go ahead, get to know more about each other using this second conditional. So go ahead and use this structure to ask some more second conditional questions and answers with your partner to practice this structure. And when you're done, come back here. I have a poem called If by Rudyard Kipling that I want you to listen to. So go ahead, pause the video. Okay, now I mentioned I have a poem. This is the poem. Now this poem is called If by Rudyard Kipling. And it is a very well-known poem. You could easily find this online. And there's a video here attached to my lesson. I can play this video and we can watch this together.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor look too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life for broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginning, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are done, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 40 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. The Kipling poem it's one of my favorites since I was a boy at school. My father read it to me once. And I think to me as a little boy, it summed up what a man should be. And later on, when I became an actor, there were a couple of lines in there that affected me. One was, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, it's a very good thing for an actor, because an actor's life doesn't consist of any medium things. Everything is either a hit or absolute disaster. So there was that one. And then there is another line, which is, if you can hear the words you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, well, that's the press as far as actors are concerned, because you're always seeing something and you go, wait a minute, I never said that. And so it stayed with me all my life, right until this very day, you know. The war, for a start, took my dad away for 6 years. I never forgave him for that. You know, war disrupts everything. I was evacuated on my own and ill-treated and all that sort. Everything went wrong, you know. Peace, things go right. I was a soldier when I was 19. I spent my 19th year in Korea as a Fusilier infantryman. And so I know what I'm talking about when I talk about war. And it's the most disgusting thing that you could ever think of. And I've also noticed with every single war has been declared by men who are too old to go. And it's made me suspicious.
I think this is a wonderful poem. And when I was in school, I was a student, 12 years old, I had to memorize this poem and recite it in front of the class. And at that time, I didn't like that my teacher made me memorize such a long poem and get up in front of the class and say this poem. But now, looking back, I think it was a great thing for us to do. But today, we're learning about the second conditional. So I want you to look at this poem and think about it. Is this poem written in the second conditional? We have a lot of if. Go ahead and study some of the sentences you see. Is it second conditional? Well, let's go back over here for a moment. Let me say if, let me switch colors here. If past tense verb would, or reverse of that. So we got if can. Can is not a past tense verb. That's a present tense verb. So if can, if can, if can, if can, if can. They are, it looks like all of these are if you can do something. So the answer is this is not the second conditional. So what does this tell us that Rudyard Kipling thought about what he was saying? Does he think that what he's telling you is possible or impossible? Right. He's saying it's possible. We know that just by what grammar he chose to write it. If he had written it this way, if you could keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, that would mean that he thought it was impossible for you to do that, or unlikely. But we can see that he wrote it in the first conditional. So this is the first conditional. I'll give you a little hint about what I will teach in the next lesson, the first conditional. But yes, this is not the second conditional. And how do we know that? Because it's not a past tense verb. And so we don't think that he thinks this is impossible. Okay? So I hope you guys totally understand what the second conditional is and how to use it to ask a question, how to use it to answer a question, and what situation it is appropriate to use. Okay? Until next time, I'm Darren with Go English. I'll see you later.